Welcome to the session, Building More Reliable Integrations with G Suite Reseller APIs. I'm very excited to host all of you up here. And as the name suggests, this talk is focused towards Google partners who are interested in selling G Suite products to their customers and want to leverage the G Suite Reseller APIs to do so. A bit of an advance warning, some of the slides might actually get deeply technical, so I'll try my best to keep it more interactive and not boring. Starting off with a little bit about me. My name is Prashant Yadav, and I've been a software engineer on the G Suite Partner Platform team and also at Google for 3 years. Prior to this, I was at Microsoft for over 8 years working on large-scale platform systems. My work here primarily involves with all issues related to G Suite Partner Platform, and especially focusing on the reseller APIs and reseller console. And I should say it on behalf of myself and my product team that we are really passionate about how partners are key to Google's growth in this online cloud-based productivity market. And me and my team, we constantly strive towards making all aspects of partner integrations smooth and as frictionless as possible. And a little bit about the audience. So I expect you to represent a G Suite partner. You're most likely a technical person, an engineer, developer, manager, and your primarily goal is to make sure that you use G Suite Reseller APIs to integrate all of your flows and to make sure your integrations work at scale. And you really care about automating most parts of your integrations and trying to remove all aspects of manual steps involved as much as possible. So this is how the talk will look like. We'll go over the key takeaways from the session, then look at the most important integration scenarios which partner face, then go in deep about all the APIs which would need to be integrating with us, then look at the testing best practices and what Google can offer you here, and then go deep into the integration flows and what are the technical deep points in each one of this. And at the end, how to get Google support. So just let's go over what are the key takeaways of today's session. So first of all, check out the new push notifications that we have launched, which allow you to get real-time notifications about the most important events related to your customers. And then we'll spend more time understanding the new test reseller console, which Google has started to provide for API partners, and how to leverage them, and along with them, the best practices for testing. And then definitely go over all the technical details, which are very important, and they require special attention from partners while integrating. So before we go forward, I know this is after lunch, and it's a bit of lazy time, and throwing a technical session at this time, not the right recipe. But let's keep it a little interactive. In case whenever you have questions on any slide, just raise your hands. I'll try to take the questions right away. And if some questions cannot be answered immediately, I'll be having time for question answers later, and I'll be sticking around here if anybody wants to have some more discussions. So let's start with the main integration scenarios. So first of all is a new customer provisioning. Where it starts is you have a customer who is ready with a domain and who wants to buy G Suite. What ends up in this flow is you create a customer in G Suite, you decide the right G Suite subscription to buy, get the right payment plan, buy it, create the initial administrators, set them in a working state, verify the domain when you can, and keep the customer in a state that the administrator can just log into Google for the first time and get their email and everything working immediately. The next one is for your existing customers, the general lifecycle event changes. Customers might want to upgrade or downgrade their G Suite subscriptions, buy add-ons, or they might be suspended, activated, plan changes, a lot of activity for existing customers. Then the most important point is understanding bills. So two parts for this. First part is understanding how Google bills for each and every customer and subscription. So partners are interested in, for every customer subscription created, when does Google start billing? When does Google stop billing? How much does Google bill for each subscription? And many times, when would a billing for a subscription pause and when it will resume? And once all that information is there, how to, in the right way, bill the customer appropriately for all these scenarios. Then another very important thing is how to react to most of the unexpected events that happen. So not every kind of activity that happens on your customer are actually initiated by partners. Many times, a customer could be, or subscription could be suspended by Google for abuse. A new customer might, when they sign the TOS for the first time, the subscription gets activated. This is not in partner's control when it happens. And a lot of other activities like on flexible subscriptions, when customers actually add more users, or delete users. All of them have important repercussions for partners and how to deal with them. And the end is whenever a customer decides to close their account or they transfer out of the partner, how to actually gracefully handle those cases. So let's go to the API integrations, which are the most important points for all kind of integrations. So this page goes into exactly the primary APIs which you'll always end up integrating with. The first one in blue is obviously the reseller API as part of Admin SDK. This is the primary API for managing customers and subscriptions. The next in green is the site verification API. The primary purpose of this is to verify a domain which a customer owns. The red one is the directory API in Admin SDK. Primary use for this API is to create and delete users on your customers' accounts. And then the one in gray is the new push notifications which we have launched, and they work via the Cloud PubSub APIs. We'll go over those in details. And then there are more APIs. The reporting API, which you can use to get aggregated, detailed usage statistics for all customers. And then the license manager API, which will allow you to manage in detail licenses for vault storage and a lot of other things. And then directory API, which includes every aspect of managing your customers, users, devices, groups, everything. So push notifications, these are very newly launched notifications by our team, and it's available for all G Suite partners. The notifications are delivered to partners via the Cloud PubSub API. And these notifications are actually near instant real-time events about your customers and subscriptions. Whenever something interesting happens, you'll get events for all these scenarios. We'll in later slides go over in detail how these work. So this is how you can actually set up and get your push notifications started. This is a one-time step partners need to do once in their lifetime. And starting off with the yellow boxes indicate what you need to do on the Cloud PubSub APIs. You first enable the project in your Cloud Console. You create service accounts, which you will use for getting notifications. Then coming to the blue box, this is the reseller API. You call the reseller API once to register for notifications. We'll give you back a topic name, which you can use again to listen or start a subscription on the Cloud PubSub API and receive. The listener endpoints, you can create push or pull notifications. Both of them work well, whichever suits you better. And this is, again, our online documentation explains all of the details, how to get it started, and this is a one-time effort. Now let's go into the testing best practices. What are the primary challenges to integrating with these flows? You always have challenges integrating with all APIs. But what is so special about these API? So the first thing is that these G Suite reseller APIs, you don't freely get access to these APIs. You only get one account per partner, and that one account is your production account. And the most important part of this is every API call you make has a cost implication. So every subscription you create, every order you make, they will end up actually getting billed for those activity. And especially focusing, if you're working with annual plans, whenever you do an activity, an order, you are actually liable to the bill for the entire year. So it's not very easy to just play around with these APIs while developing. And the last part is because you have one account, it's any activity development activity which could have a bug or inadvertently affect your production environment, because this one account, all your customers are on it. So there's a risk integrating with these APIs. So what have partners done in the past before we had the testing support? was they used to test, nevertheless, on the production account, the single account which they had. And they had arrangement with Google where they would do some testing for some test domains and then send Google the bill, and Google would manually refund them. It's a painful process, but it worked. That process, as I said, was always susceptible to accidental bugs, which would actually harm your existing customers. The other option was to use an old reseller API sandbox environment for testing. It, it did not work with any other APIs, and it was only working with the reseller APIs, especially, and there was no like bills involved with that. But really, because it did not work with other APIs, you cannot actually test end-to-end with it. And not surprisingly, because of those reasons, no partner actually found it useful, and eventually we just shut it down. So apart from all this, like what still could be the worst could happen if you do not integrate well? So just a question, how many dollars do you think an accidental order can cause due to some coding bugs on our side? Anybody wants to take any guess? Is it like $100,000, $500,000 or more? So $500,000? So yeah, the right answer is $3 million. So this happened not very long ago. Suddenly in our system, as you've seen, like probably in movies, right? You have some backend team running, and suddenly they start popping up some weird exceptions, and some engineer is paged about some special activity happening. This happened, and we were called for the details, and we saw a partner submitting amazing amount of orders for us. Like initially, we became very happy. Some partner is really getting big orders for us. But like looking deeply, we said something is wrong, and we saw that within a span of 2 days, they had submitted orders worth $3 million. And we got back to them, and they looked at it, and after some time, they realized that, yeah, an engineer made a coding bug on their live system, and all their orders and everything coming to us was starting to be in such huge numbers that we got like up to $3 million of orders. So obviously, after this, Google refunded them, but the whole process is just so painful. Nobody wants to get to it. And believe me, the importance of revenue recognition, bookkeeping, how refunds, billing, and everything is made, on our side also, we realize how complicated these things are when we face these issues. So nobody, Google and our partners, nobody wants to get into such situations. So the solution we recommend right now is the test reseller console. So basically, all the active resellers who have a reseller account can get eligible for getting these accounts. The way it works is you create a test trial G Suite account direct, and then you contact Google, and we will convert that account into a test reseller console. That name, the domain name for those accounts need to follow some testing conventions to make sure that there are no abuses and no overlaps with actual real-world customers. How do these accounts work? First, they are pretty much exactly like your regular accounts. The only exception is that for all your customers, you need to keep following the domain name guidelines, which make sure that you don't use real-world domains. And then this account is never billed. All the prices for all the orders you do on this account are 0. And this data, because this is a separate account, is totally separate from your actual real-world customers. So there is no risk to actually harming your production environment. And you don't need to really clean up whatever activity you do in these accounts. Google will automatically delete all the customers created on test accounts within a few days. And we really don't have any number of limits of customers created. So while testing, there is nothing you need to worry about. So I'll go over mainly the brief testing practices we would recommend. So first of all is while your initial development for G Suite integrations, use these accounts while you're building your code for the first time and getting your integrations ready. Next is all the individual developers. They could be given a credential on that account for their regular activity. So whenever they are working on bugs or adding incremental things, they have an account handy where they can actually make calls to Google and make sure their code is working. The third is whenever you are actually doing a live system rollout, maybe for the first time or every incremental feature with Google, do an end-to-end integration testing of your entire scenario using these accounts to make sure everything works end-to-end. And at the end, this have a set of regular, weekly or daily tests running automatically using the test accounts on your system. This is the most important thing I can tell you from my experience. I've seen in the engineering in both Google and Microsoft for a long time. This comes really handy, even with the best engineering teams and everything. If you have systems which continuously keep testing, you will always find out issues before they actually hit your live production environment. This practice has been a lifesaver generally for all big companies, and this is a no-brainer. You always need to have regular test activity happening. So how many people use this right now? We have been giving this out for 1 year right now. All the new API partners get it. The existing, even existing partners are eligible to get an account from Google. We have over 30 partners right now actively using it. We have seen more than 10,000 customers created, and as of now, we see hundreds of accounts being created daily. So clearly, all the partners using are finding it very useful. So let's go into the more detailed technical flows right now. First of all, to understand the data model, the G Suite system has two primary entities. The first one is the customer. The customer has a unique ID, which clearly represents the customer. The other thing customer has is the primary domain. One domain can be the primary domain, which the customer owns. And then they can have multiple aliases or secondary domains. They can have a lot many users in that domain. The second most important entity are subscriptions. A single customer can have multiple subscriptions. However, for a G Suite, you can only have primary one G Suite subscription. You can also buy add-on subscriptions like Vault and Drive. Subscriptions have consist of SKU ID, a unique subscription ID. They can have plan details, number of seats, renewals, settings, etc. So let's go over the detailed flows. What goes through in a new customer provisioning? This shows what all integrations a partner needs to do for the creating new customers. The first boxes in green indicate how you integrate with the site verification APIs. Whenever you get a domain, a brand new domain which a customer wants to sign up G Suite with, you can call Google's site verification APIs to verify that customer really owns this domain. This is very important since once you verify that the customer really owns the domain, Google services can work seamlessly. The next blue box are the calls you make to reseller APIs for creating a customer. The red boxes indicate the admin SDK APIs. You have to create a admin user, create a user and make it an admin. And at the end, you create a subscription. Once you've done all this, you're ready to have the customer in a ready state. Some of the key points to focus, like while creating a user, is all G Suite customers are supposed to have at least one administrator. So you must create at least one user initially, and that user must be administrator. This admin must log into Google once and sign the Google task before their email or anything else starts working. Now, this is not in control of a partner, but the customer has to first log in and get it activated. The other side is 409 errors. So if a domain customer comes to you and they want to buy a domain, but they have some users already using Google's consumer services like YouTube, Google Analytics, those are considered conflict situations. And whenever you try to create a user which already exists using these services, we do not directly boot out the other user. The important distinguishing factor here is that if you have already verified the domain while creating the user, we will allow you to create that domain, and we will evict the other user. Evict means we will not delete the account, but we'll send appropriate action items for that account to get rolled over into the real Google domain. Unless you have verified the domain, you cannot do that step. The other part is transferring a customer. Not always all customers you get are brand new customers. Some of them are existing, and they with other resellers or directly with Google, so you need to transfer that. The way you will do that is first you check whether a customer exists or not via doing a customer.get call. Then you manually ask the customer for a transfer token. This is like a password which the customer can generate. Using that password, you can do a list subscription on the customer and insert subscription on each of the subscription which customer has. You have to make sure you do the insert subscriptions in a single batch request. And once you do that, the customer will be transferred on your side. Some of the key points to remember for transfers is that while transferring an existing customer to to yourself, you cannot make changes to the SKUs. You must transfer all the SKUs as it is. And all the subscriptions transferred must happen in a single batch request. You need a transfer token from the customer. And every time when you transfer a customer, you will create a brand new subscription with brand new renewals and everything. So you don't carry over whatever the plan was with the customer earlier. And one of the key things to remember is that when you're transferring customers who have multiple subscriptions, you need to make sure that on your account, you've already signed all the TOSes. Some of Google's additional services like Drive storage, they require the partners to sign a TOS. If you've not signed the TOS, the transfers will actually fail. Now just to see how notifications work, whenever you get a new customer, whether it was an existing customer with Google earlier or not, you always get a new subscription which is created. The moment the subscription is created, our push notifications API will immediately send you a notification via Cloud PubSub API. On the right, you'll see in green, right, the details of the subscription changes. If you see the bold new the event type, you'll see here a new subscription created. This exactly tells you what type of an event was created. And then based on what type of event it was, in the red, if you see, there'll be more specific details which will exactly tell why that event occurred. So testing checkpoint here is that when you have onboarded this whole flow, how do you make sure you do integration testing? So the first step is you have a test setup ready where you have the reseller console accounts, all the TOSes signed, Cloud PubSub project, everything in a working state. Then you execute your scenario of creating a customer within your flows, whether it's a website or any kind of flow. But that flow should actually go through all the steps like get customer, domain verification, admin creation, subscription, etc. And then at the end, once you've gone through that flow, make sure you verify by these fields like you make sure the customer.get returns an actual customer, subscription.list creates the right subscription which you created, and that you have created, and that once a customer is created, you get notifications for new subscription created, and the other notification will be subscription suspended, because the moment you create a subscription, it is suspended until the customer signs the TOS. So once you receive these notifications in your flow, you are ensured that all your integrations with Google are working fine. And again, a reminder is that once you've done that, you don't need to clean up. Google will automatically clean up the accounts. Let's go to how customer lifecycle changes are happening. Quickly going through how to upgrade to a G Suite Business subscription. What you need to do is just call in subscription.insert on the G Suite Business QID, and automatically your G Suite Basic will get upgraded to this subscription. Similarly, downgrade works exactly the same as upgrade. You just do a subscription.insert on G Suite Basic, and your earlier subscription will get downgraded. Now, coming back to notifications for this, the moment you upgrade or downgrade, again, you'll get a notification from Cloud PubSub with the event type saying that subscription was upgraded or downgraded. Suspending a customer. You can suspend customers for up to 60 days. The way you do is, on a customer, you call list subscriptions and suspend all of the subscriptions, or whichever one do you want. One thing to note is that whenever you suspend flexible subscriptions, Google will pause billing the partner for it. But for annual subscriptions, they'll still be billed, and the renewal date does not change for them. Activating a customer back works exactly as the same. Call subscriptions.activate for the subscription. Notifications for this activity. For both of these, suspend and activate notifications are sent with the appropriate types, subscription suspended or suspension revoked. And you'll also have an additional reason field which will give the reason as reseller initiated, indicating that the suspension happened because the partner had initiated. Some of the important points to notice about suspension are that if you do not activate subscriptions after 60 days, Google might cancel them or transfer them over directly to Google. Suspensions could be for multiple reasons. If the customer has not accepted tasks, for abuse reasons, if their trial period ended, or something. But whenever you call activate, you can only remove the reason which with reseller initiated. That means you can only activate subscriptions which were suspended by the partner itself. As I covered earlier, flexible subscriptions are paused for billing and annual subscriptions are not. And one more thing is that new customers are always suspended by default, and the moment they sign the task, they are activated. Going through the testing checkpoint, again, similar to customer creation, for this activity, have the setup ready with all the things, have a customer created and subscriptions ready, then run your scenario in your integration flow, which ends up calling, based on each situation, subscription.insert for either upgrade or downgrade or the suspension or activation flows. Once you do that, you should be able to verify by making sure you receive the right events. For pertaining to each of the activity, the right set of events must be received from Google. Now, coming to the important area of bill, the main events which actually cause bills to be Google to bill to bill partners is primarily broken down to two areas: subscription changes, where whenever a new subscription is created, or a trial subscription is converted to a paid, billing starts. If a subscription is suspended or activated, billing could pause or unpause for flexible subscriptions. Whenever you cancel, upgrade, downgrade, that will end up changing the billing. And then coming to the payment plan changes, whenever an annual commitment, the number of committed seats are increased or decreased, whenever the annual plan renews, or in the flexible plan cases, whenever more seats are added or some are removed, and whenever customer decides or the partner decides to change payment plan for the customer. And for all of these events, the push notifications are sent to partners. One thing to note for flexible billing is that every day, the number of current licenses held by the subscription are used for billing. So the way it works is when you do a subscriptions.list and you get the subscriptions, the field license number of seats at that time tells you how many seats for that day are being charged by Google. The right way to actually keep track of all these things is earlier we used to suggest partners to run periodical cron jobs and fetch this list to make sure they know what exactly are they getting billed. But now, once you subscribe to notification events, you will get all the right notification events whenever something changes on a flexible subscription. So you don't need to really be calling Google repeatedly for this. And some of the billable events which a partner cannot control. Like the first one is for a flexible subscription, if a customer goes and accepts the task. So not all customers would accept the task immediately after buying. So they would probably take a week or more. So in those cases, the moment they sign the task, Google will start billing flexible subscriptions. Next is when admins add or remove users in their flexible plans. Partners cannot control when the customer administration can do that. And then subscription whenever they get suspended or activated for other reasons, not in partner's control. And then whenever a customer transfers away from a partner without partner initiating it. So notifications are sent for all these cases. So if you listen for notifications, you should be able to deal with all. Going to the testing checkpoint again, how to do all these things are same set of setups, get everything working, have a customers in a flexible subscription. Then in the execute session, you could try logging to the admin console as a customer and customer administrator and accept the task. And then go and try to delete or add users in customer's admin console, either via the API or via the UI. But for each of these cases, the moment the administrator signs the task, you should get an event that subscription suspension was revoked. And for users created or deleted, you will get events like license assignment changed, which will indicate that something about the seed activity is changed, and you should get the new field immediately and see the right value. Finally, coming to customer offboarding. So how do you cancel a customer? Whenever a customer decides to either close their account or to cancel relationship with the reseller, you would end up just transferring the customer back to Google. So important thing to remember is that Google does not allow partners to delete customers' accounts. You can just transfer them to Google. The way you do is do a list subscriptions on the customer, and for each subscription, do a subscription.delete with the reason as transfer to direct. And make sure you do all of these as a batch call. Once you do that, the customer is gracefully transferred to Google, and you don't need to worry about the customer. The other cases are when a customer transfers outside a partner without actually notifying the partner. This could happen if the customer contacts Google support to transfer, or a customer gives transfer token to another partner and they transfer away. In these cases, as in the blue box, the customer just initiates the transfer. In the red box, the transfer happens through and the partner loses the customer. And how do the partners react in these cases is they need to settle the final bills and expect Google will stop billing them for this customer. For these cases right now, we are sending API notifications using those push notifications. So listening to those activities, you can get the events whenever a customer transfers out immediately. We also send email notifications in such cases. So yeah, this is just talking about all offboarded customers. Whenever a customer is offboarded, either by the partner or for any reason, you always get a notification for that. Coming to testing checkpoint again for this flow, in your integration flow, when you run through the scenario of closing in customer's account, which goes through the actual Google events which need to be called, you should verify it by waiting for subscriptions and making sure the right subscriptions are got back. And coming finally to support, if you have any questions, in general, Google's online documentation has all the details about all these APIs and other things. If you need a reseller console, a test reseller console account, you can open a support ticket with Google and we can help you get an account. And for any API issues which you're facing, when you open a support ticket, make sure you get all the details right, like the full header and response details, authentication methods, your reseller, customer domain name, and all details, so Google can appropriately respond. So now doing a little bit recap, the primary things are, so you can just contact Google and get a test reseller console account and follow all the best practices which I just described. And remember about the push notifications. Use these to cover all the integration holes in your scenarios. And keep in mind all the corner details which we discussed which require special attention.